Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 4 of the IGN Arena podcast. I'm Leah B. Jackson. This is Mitch Dyer. This is James Faulkner.
Hey.
And filling in for Brian Albert today is Cody Tyson, a.k.a. DJ Pernicus, a professional Smite player. Because we're going to be talking some Smite today, because you guys love Smite.
Much. I hope so.
Indeed, they do. We have
We got so many emails.
Yeah, so we have a lot of readers have been writing in, asking, tips or leaving feedback for us, and you can do so too by sending us a message to arenapodcast@ign.com. And lots of folks have been asking about Smite. So a little bit later on in the show, we're going to talk about Smite. You're going to give us some new player tips. We're going to learn about the game a little bit. Get a feel for some Smite.
But first,
indeed. But first,
E3.
we're going to talk about E3 because E3 was last week. We didn't have a show last week.
Yep.
I apologize. But we were at the show seeing what I thought was going to be a lot more MOBAs than were actually at the show.
So we went in, the last show we did, we went in saying, there's going to be so many MOBAs at E3. This is going to be the year of the MOBA. We're going to go see 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 MOBAs. No, not the case. 2 might be generous.
Dawngate and
Dawngate was kind of there. We saw a trailer for Dawngate.
Yeah.
Right. So Dawngate is the new EA MOBA that's coming out, and then Arena of Fate is the new Crytek MOBA that's coming out. That's coming to both consoles and PC.
I had no idea that game was going to consoles until right now.
Yeah, and we only saw the PC version at the show, but I mean it was pretty cool. I liked it.
I liked it a lot.
I got my hands on it. So what did you think? I have some notes here, but I want to know what you think as well. First.
So it seems really simplified. I actually have a few issues with it, but it seems like a really good simplified sort of MOBA, right? Like you have. For out of the gate, you have all 5 of your skills unlocked. You just have them, and you can use them at any time.
Including your ultimate.
Yeah, so you come out of the gate, first thing you could do is drop your ult. But the way the leveling system works is it kind of gives you access to items, and it just kind of boosts your stats really slowly. So when you hit level 6, it's kind of when you really come into your own without having to worry about your ultimate, because every level you earn access to a new item, which is plus 250 health, plus 20 critical, plus 20 tower defense, that kind of stuff. And that seems really cool to me. And once you hit 6, your stats start getting boosted really, really quickly. So you become more and more dangerous. Another thing I really liked is taking down creeps. And I think heroes outside of a tower range gives you way more gold, which I think you mentioned translates into XP.
Yes.
So if you take down 10 creeps, so if you take down a creep in tower range, it gives you 6 gold versus 46. So it's to your benefit to be more aggressive. And I really like that this makes you, it encourages you to be very, very aggressive.
Mm-hmm. One of the main things about Arena of Fate that I like is that there's a 20-minute time limit on the match. So no matter what, it's over in 20 minutes. No matter how many, what's going on in the game, it's done in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I really like that. But there were 3 sort of win conditions, exactly. So one of them was called outscore, which means you could score, or one was called overwhelm. So if you can destroy the other team's base in 20 minutes, then you automatically win. If you outscore the other team by, killing them more times.
Yeah, I think it was 7 kills equals 1 victory point.
Yeah, so 7 kills equals 1 point. Yeah, exactly. 1 tower gets a point. If you get more points than them, then you win, and then if you outlast the other team by having more points than them at the end of 20 minutes, then you win too. So I like that there are different win conditions than just kill the other team's base, which is the win condition in basically every MOBA out there right now.
That's also the win condition. If you do that, you do win.
Yeah, so that isn't, totally. But I like that there were sort of these little extra things that you could do in the game. I thought that was special.
I just didn't. So my thing with that is I do like that a lot as well. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And maybe I'm just not thinking about it in the right way. I just don't know why there are jungle creeps or jungle neutrals. I don't know why in that context of I need to get kills and take down towers to get points to win, why I would ever spend a second in the jungle.
So
that actually is really interesting because you say the game ends in 20 minutes and a lot of in competitive gaming, teams can make it through, 10, 15 minutes easy. Everyone can.
Yeah.
But it comes down to who's the better, late game team, Who's the team that farmed up for the 20 minutes and then fought afterwards, has the items, has the skills to outplay everyone. So, it'll be interesting to see how that goes. You can either have a deathmatch strategy where everyone's just trying to get as many kills as possible to win the game that way, or a turtle strategy. You get a slight advantage and you just do nothing.
And just hold out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see which direction it goes in.
Oh God, if that's a playstyle that community adopts, I'm gonna go crazy.
And there's no max level in Arena of Fate either, so you can sort of farm up as much as you want and
within that 20 minutes.
Yeah, within that 20 minutes, and really make your character super super strong. But
yeah, I don't.
You look so confused, James.
I mean, it's breaking so many of the conventions
of course
that we're so used to. But I just don't. I feel like maybe do you have just one person farm insanely and then you just crush them by how like your rest of the team just kind of stay together and not get as much? Did it do like the team XP time?
No.
There's something that's shared, and I actually can't remember what it is.
I don't believe that there's team XP, but I believe that there is shared creep gold. So if you kill a creep, then you still have to aim the last hit, basically.
Okay.
But if you are around me and I aim the last hit, then you will still get gold.
Yeah, because they want to eliminate the kind of competition within teams. Within 5 people, I'm getting mad at James because James is stealing all my last hits as my support. They're like, no, don't worry about it. You both get it.
Okay.
Yeah, but someone has to get the actual last hit. And there's no denying. I made sure to ask that. So that's another sort of difference that makes it a little bit simpler. And one other thing was that you don't have to go back to the item shop to get items. They are instantly given to you after, you have to channel for 3 seconds basically, and then the item just sort of pops into your inventory rather than you having to go all the way back to the item store and then back
feeding into
lane.
that idea of this is an aggressive game. They don't want to pull you out of combat. They want to keep you there and then give you the bonus so you can just keep going.
Are the death timers very long? I'm assuming that would be a kind of important.
Not really. I mean, in a game that's only 20 minutes long, there's not really time to get past that threshold where you die, and it's, oh man, I'm out for a minute and a half. You never really get to that point.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think 20 seconds was the longest I saw.
Yeah, I feel like this is just a MOBA deathmatch more than it is a general lane pushing game.
But you can win that way.
Yeah. Is there objectives as in what we think of in Smite, the fire giant, or
right? There's no Roshan. There's nothing that I saw, but I didn't really go poking around the jungle too much.
I think that there might be. It's a 2-lane map, so I think in the center lane that there might be some larger monsters that give you more XP and gold. Right. It seemed like, but nothing like the fire giant to that extent. I would say that I saw anyway. But I only played one match, so I mean maybe there are more Smite meta, or not Smite, Arena of Fate meta, where that could come into play. But I mean, so. After what you've heard from this, I mean, you haven't played it yet. What do you think of Arena of Fate?
I mean, I actually saw some gameplay in a trailer, and I don't know. It doesn't look like it brings anything different, substantially different than any other MOBA.
Sure.
I think the interesting dynamic that is in the scene right now is you need to appeal to the casual player, which is make the game easy to play. Basically everyone should be able to install it and play it without a lot of difficulty. But also there needs to be a really high skill ceiling so that the really good players can differentiate themselves from the rest of the pack. And that's a hard thing to do. And whether or not they're going to be able to do that with that current system, like I said, 20 minutes, that's pretty short for competitive gameplay normally. It's nice for casuals because, like you said, sometimes you don't have 45 minutes, an hour and 15 minutes to play. So it's hard to say early. You kind of have to see people play the game before you really make a solid opinion about how it's going to be.
And it's hard to do that after we all played one 20-minute match and moved on with our lives. So it's really hard to reach that point.
Yeah, we'll have to dig into Arena of Fate a little bit more as development progresses, and they're going to be entering beta this summer, hopefully.
Beta in summer,
so yeah, exactly. So I mean, we'll see more of Arena of Fate soon. But I mean, it was a good first taste. I liked. My initial bite, I guess I would say. But yeah, I mean,
I'm more interested than I expected to be.
Yeah, and I definitely want to see how it plays on consoles. That was one thing that I really wanted to see, but I don't know.
Yeah. My question and the follow up to that would be: do they plan on cross-platforming it, where someone on Xbox or whatever can play with the PC?
I would love that. I
highly doubt it.
From a casual perspective, it's nice, but you can't out mechanic someone who has a mouse when you have a controller. You know what I mean? Aiming with your thumbs is a lot different, or controlling something as opposed to your entire hand.
Especially if you could queue a skill, or you you want to chain a bunch of attacks together, and you just hold shift, and you can't do that on a console.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
Do we know if is it skill shot based? Because I'm assuming I don't know.
Yeah, there were skill shots.
Okay.
I think one of my heals is whatever healer I played was a skill shot.
Okay.
That's pretty cool.
I mean, I'm assuming that would work better because again, you can aim with a stick, but it's even
That's what Guardians of Middle Earth did, was many skill shots.
Yeah, it was all just the radial circles around the character. Yeah.
we'll have to see.
Indeed.
And there wasn't anything else. I mean, Evolve we talked about before. It's kind of being.
It's got MOBA elements, but it's very much not a MOBA.
Yeah.
Dawngate seems, I don't know. The more I see of that game, the less interested I am. But I am interested to learn more about it.
Right. We'll have to see. We didn't get to see much of it at E3, anyways.
More on Dawngate soon, though.
Yes.
I'm assuming like Gamescom and maybe other places were MOBAs.
More PC focused.
Yeah, more PC focused.
Sure.
And definitely more esports focused would be. At Gamescom, because they have a whole hall dedicated just to esports, which is awesome. All right, well, that'll do it for the Arena of Fate talk, I would say.
Yep.
So shall we move on to Smite, the Smite talk?
Yes.
All right. So Smite was our game of the week, I would say, this week. And so let's talk about Smite.
Yeah.
Smite is a free-to-play MOBA. It's a third-person MOBA based around sort of ancient gods. And you can go download it right now while you're listening to this in the background so you can, test it out after you hear more about it.
Make sure you enable downloading in the background, because every time I would click away from the downloader, it would stop downloading.
Great.
So it took me about 2 hours, because I would alt-tab to go read, and then it would just not download.
Yes, but once you got the download done, we played some Smite this week.
Yes.
And I mean, I really enjoy Smite. I think it's a much different take on MOBAs than any other sort of entry that we've seen so far. I mean, give us the lowdown on Smite from a professional perspective, though.
Well, I think the thing that drew me in was I originally played professional Counter-Strike since I was really, really young. And I also played a little like World of Warcraft Arena, which is was really fun for me. And Smite kind of mixed those within a MOBA because everything's skill shot based. Your auto attacks are skill shot based.
Right, yeah.
Every single ability is skill shot based. Some are larger than others. Some are straight lines, some are circles. And you have the third person WASD movement, which is similar to Counter-Strike, but also similar to Arena in a sense that you're behind your character.
Totally.
It's not top down. And so I really enjoyed it. As soon as I started playing it, I was like, it feels fluid. The movement's really nice. There's a lot of room for skilled players to kind of differentiate themselves because everything's skill shot based. It was just a lot of fun. It was like an experience I had when I first started playing Counter-Strike, and I was like 14 years old, and I'd just sit there on my dad's laptop playing for like 8 hours and the most random map, and it just didn't get old for me, and that's the feel I got when I first started playing. So. Yeah, it was nice.
I definitely felt the WoW influence as soon as because I was moving or I was so used to remember in WoW where you could double click, with left and right click, and I started doing that because I was can I run like this? And I was like, oh, you can't. But I was like, whatever. But no, it definitely felt like going up to the 1, 2, 3 to queue up your skills felt really
natural.
Natural in a very different way from League or Dota.
Yeah.
Yeah, something that this is like the smallest, dumbest thing, but I actually really like that if you're attacking, your movement speed is almost halved.
Yeah.
You have to really commit. Like, if I'm going to escape, I can't just turn and go. If I turn and use a skill on someone, I'm really going to slow down. So my escape has to be really committed to escape.
Yeah. No, and that's a big part of the game because, there's items and abilities based on removing that. So some characters are like, well, my auto attacks are super important and my movement's super important, so how are we going to negate that effect? But like you said, there's a lot of little small variables you need to keep in mind. It's not there's definitely a lot of skill involved for sure.
Yeah, and something I loved about the skills, at least in the arena matches we played, I think when I was playing with you, we only played one regular lane game. But something I really liked with the skills with those characters we played was that a lot of them kind of remove people from play for a little bit. You can charge someone and send them up in the air, or I think it's like the little dragon snake thing picks people up and attacks them in the air. So they are fully removed from play. And that's a really interesting dynamic to suddenly, for the next 10 seconds, we don't have a fifth player.
Yeah, I was playing as Neza, and his ultimate sort of punches someone up into the air, and then you can click a few times to get critical attacks on them. But like you're saying, it completely brings those, the Neza and the character he's punching out of combat for, a good chunk of it to allow your team to sort of make a lot of things happen on the ground while you're dealing with someone else.
Yeah.
And not only is that really a cool dynamic, but the effect is awesome looking. Smite's a beautiful game. I really was impressed by the graphics when I was playing that one too. And also, I think that some of the characters in Smite are super, super fun to play. Nazar was really fun, actually. I got a kick out of him, but I really like playing as Poseidon.
Yeah.
And
Poseidon is a monster.
Yeah, Poseidon was really fun, and one of the newer characters, Janus, was cool. He's sort of the god of portals, and so you can make a portal and sort of sink people through them, and then they'll come out from the top and then like fall down. That was really neat. Yeah, I was having a lot of fun with Smite. I mean, what are some of the characters who you like?
I mean, I play a jungle role, so I play a lot of like melee physical gods. Nazar's pretty cool. I think one interesting thing is that, you know, you take someone out of combat, it's not only in that you're in the air just like doing nothing too. Like you said, you're supposed to click at certain times.
Right.
And those clicks at those specific times get you like a critical versus a non-critical.
Right.
I think Smite's done a really good job of making kind of unique mini mechanics within the game. And that's really it changes that. It makes you really excited for every new god release. You know, it's not just like, oh, it's another god that's similar to a different god. It's like, no, you know, a lot of these gods are a lot different, and they play a lot different. And even though, like I said, I'm a jungler and I play, you know, a lot of melee physical gods, there's also like magic gods that can come into the jungle. There's also some ranged gods that can come into the jungle, you know. And so there's a lot of diversity within each role, I feel like. And that's really fresh, because for someone like me, I can't sit there and play the same god over and over and over. I like to, you know, switch it up.
Gotta mix it up.
For it to actually be viable to change up your, you know, the god you select is really cool. It makes it more entertaining for a prolonged period of time.
Absolutely, yeah. And something like to that point, I think it's really interesting that Smite, like the biggest advantage it has for me, aside from like the perspective is really interesting, you know, like that WoW sort of over the back camera's nice, and the having everything be a skill shot is great, but all of it relies on you being actively involved in every single aspect of your character. You know, in Dota, I can right click and be like, okay, go to the top lane.
Right.
And while you're doing that, I'm going to go watch what's happening in bottom lane.
Right.
You don't really have that opportunity here. You really have to be involved in, okay, I need to walk there. And for some people that might not work, but I actually really, really enjoyed that, you know, I need to be aware of what I'm doing with my movements while doing them, aside from just like click, 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 click. You know, you have to treat it a little more like a WoW arena or a Counter-Strike, where you have to physically move yourself around.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, you're behind the character, not over the character. So while you are moving, you know, someone could be following you.
Yes,
and if you don't check behind you, they could literally follow you the entire way until you attack, you know, a side lane, and then they'll just attack you and that side lane at the same time and clean everything up.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of like sneakiness and a lot of like you said, you need to be alert at all times. You can't like drop your guard, because you're not looking down on the map. You're just in your field of view, and that's it. And it also makes you have to communicate more with your team. And I know they have, you know, a system built in for like radio commands, basically. That's been pretty good so far. You know, they don't want to do the voice chat because, you know, that's controversial. Some games do, some games don't, but
yeah, it can get pretty bad. We had a game a couple nights ago in Dota where someone was just jumping in there and saying it was I forget who it was. It was who I was landing with as Lion, who would not communicate.
Yeah, it was awful. I mute almost anybody who ever uses the game chat in Dota. Like, they say one thing, I'm like, no, we're done here.
The one thing I did really like, in terms of, we were talking about earlier, like the difference between coming in as casual and being able to pick it up and the high skill ceiling, is that for people coming in, they have the auto buy system.
Oh yeah, I really like that.
For coming in, like learning an entirely new set of items and skills, where it's just like, no, we'll just do it for you. So
you just play.
Yeah, you can learn the mechanics.
You can focus on playing instead of worrying about the meta systems.
And then as soon as you probably if you pick it up pretty quickly, then you can turn those off.
Yeah.
But having that there
was nice.
Yeah, rather than just a guide where it's just like, well, okay, we'll do it, but like they have a built-in, like we'll do it for you.
Yeah, that's super helpful for me too. As somebody who doesn't play a lot of League, like I play a lot more Dota than anything else. I don't play a lot of MOBAs with that sort of like item tree system. Dota's recipes are similar, but you know, in League and in Smite, you have, okay, these boots turn into these different kinds of boots. Which tree do you want to take? So for me, it's like, oh man, like I'm gonna have this auto buy while I look at what any of this means, so that next time I know what to go for.
Yeah, and it's gotten a lot better too. I mean, at the start, it was. You know, whatever developers were working on it, maybe we're a little bit of noobs themselves, but like recently it's gotten to the point where, you know, they're pretty decent builds. You know, they're not going to put you behind the 8 ball when you go into a match against, you know, other decent players. So yeah, no, it's definitely a cool system, and they even have the auto skill up too. Other games have that as well, but just to really let you just play the game.
Yeah.
Don't worry about playing, you know, the item shop. Play the actual game that you're trying to play. You know, so.
I think it's great. I think it's definitely a great game for both, someone who just wants to sort of learn how to play, but also, there's depth into it so that you can play it for a really long time and really learn and get super good and play competitively. Right. I mean, it's definitely at that level. Yeah. So Smite's a good one. Thumbs up for Smite?
Yeah.
Awesome.
The farther I get from it, the more I'm actually like, I like that. I had fun.
Good. And there's so many different modes in Smite, too. That was another thing that I also wanted to make sure that we mentioned, that there's an arena mode that's sort of a death match, but there's also like the standard classic sort of 5v5 mode. There's a 3v3. There's an ARAM mode. I mean, there's tons of stuff to do in Smite. So Smite's cool. Try it out. And thanks for telling us to play it, you guys. We really appreciate, all of your feedback from the IGN Arena fans. So now let's move on. Indeed. Okay. So we're going to move on now to a topic that's kind of bubbling up a lot more recently. And you're actually an amazing person to talk to about this because you're a pro gamer. But I want to talk about, should we consider pro gamers athletes? Because, with the World Cup sort of hype now, a lot of people are who aren't necessarily into sports all the time are sort of like sports all of a sudden and like, yay, soccer. Or football. Yeah. So, and I just want to sort of talk about people who aren't necessarily into esports all the time, but they sort of see things like the Dota 2 tournament has a $10 million prize pool at this point, and they're like, esports, yes, we love this all of a sudden. Yeah. But I don't know if we should be considering the people who are playing the games athletes or not. And this is a really big debate that I see come up in basically every single article that I write is, they're not athletes, don't call them athletes. But I mean, pro gamers train super hard. I mean, they have crazy regimes that they go through, just like regular athletes. I mean, they're not like, you look physically strong like a normal athlete, but a lot of them don't, train in the same way, but they still train really hard.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So, let's go around and sort of talk about, how, that whole thing.
Yeah, the first thing I want to bring up is a couple months ago, I brought it to Mitch's attention with that. The league players for coming in to play for LCS, if they're foreign, get the same visas that athletes do.
Yes.
Right.
I'm not sure if it says it's athletes. It may say it's
I think it is an athlete's visa.
Or a competitor's visa, something like that. So, in at least the government's mind, they're coming in to compete in an event. So I definitely think that is a forward motion into, yes, I think they're athletes.
Sure.
They're these people that are coming into maybe not completely fit the physical thing, but they are coming in to compete.
It's a hard thing, right? Because we've been so attuned for literally centuries that an athlete is somebody who is like physical prowess, like Grecian Olympics. The original Grecian Olympics is like, you are the best manifestation of an athlete wins the Olympics. So now we're approaching this time in history where people are playing video games with, athletic proficiency. There are comparable levels of skill and comparable levels of training, and they're, the layout of a team is you have 5 people who are cooperating, and they have a coach, and they have people who are in charge of their named organization. It is very similar to a sport. It is very similar to any mainstream league like the NHL or the NFL or the NBA or whatever. And we're sort of getting used to the idea of these people aren't doing something that is as physically taxing as playing a soccer match, but they are doing things that require a similar level of skill in the context of what they're doing.
Yeah. And at least in an organizational perspective, they're now hiring, teams, at least in the top teams, are hiring, like coaches and, people purely do analysis. People to watch film and watch the team play and not be, motivate them, but to be, look at this specific thing we're doing, and we're going to work on that one thing today. And having someone paid to do that, as soon as you start, I think having a structure in place like that, then you are legitimizing the entire esports athlete persona package. Yeah.
What do you have to say about this? As a professional player.
Yeah.
I would love if you were like, no, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, one thing I will say is, at the end of the day, it's all semantics, right?
Sure.
You could sit here and argue about how you're going to define an athlete, but does it really matter? No, because whether you think it's they're an athlete or whatever, it doesn't matter. It's just people just need to be open-minded to the fact that this is happening, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And how you're going to recognize it, that's on you. That's your opinion,
Yeah.
I think people just need to be more accepting of the fact that this is something individuals choose to do. This is something that they're good at, and it's not necessarily like they don't have to be a nerd. Like you said, like I've been like a 20 sport athlete my entire life. I grew up playing sports. That's what I did, and that's why I came into video games. Like while I was playing with sports, I was getting older, and I was like going to go to college, and I was like, eventually I'm not going to be able to play sports anymore, on a competitive level. So what can I do to feed that competitive, fire? So this was another way to do it. You're not running, a mile or lifting, or pushing people around or jumping up to grab a rebound, but the mental side is there, obviously. Like imagine someone, you're in the playoffs, you're shooting a free throw or something. You have to have the mental toughness to kind of zone everything else out and just do what you need to do. And that's more prevalent in video games, I'd say, because especially with the mouse, one small movement can be a pretty large movement in the game. So to have like the the mental dexterity to not let things bug you, and so you make that little mechanical mistake or even mental mistake decision making, that's a big deal, and it's something that is shared between a sport a traditional sport or an esport. But yeah, like I said, I was at the gym the other day and I heard someone say, ping pong's more of a sport than soccer, and it's like, people always argue what is,
who cares? Why can't you just enjoy it?
Yeah, I think the fact is that it's here. Even a Smite team right now is being salaried to play, and it's a new game. So that's not going to change. That's something that's going to continue. The video game industry, as you guys know, is huge, and it's not getting any smaller. So people are just going to have to be more open-minded about it, and that's the important thing, I think.
Do you remember the first time you got a kill in a MOBA? Like,
No.
do you? Man, I do. I remember it so vividly. Like, I remember scoring my first goal in hockey. I just had like such a similar rush of feelings.
Really?
Like, and every time I get a kill in Dota, and every time we win, it feels like winning a hockey game or a baseball game. Like any sport I played growing up, there's a similar feeling. Like, man, I hit a base hit.
Yeah.
Feels like getting a kill in a MOBA to me.
Yeah.
Like they're just, I don't know. The chemical reaction is very similar to me.
I will say, maybe not the first kill, but there's times where especially in Counter-Strike when I was on big stages at like WCG or something, and you clutch around, like
you turn things around and people cheer.
You just want to scream and you want to yell, and that seems kind of strange because you're sitting down playing a video game. But that's the same feeling I got when I was in high school and I'd score like a game-winning basket. Like you just pump your fist, like it's the same feelings.
Yeah.
It's just a different, mechanism to get there.
Totally. I mean, I think it's just what you're saying. It's semantics. Like, this is here to stay. Esports is here. It's a thing now. Like you're saying, these players are getting salaried for multiple games now to play them professionally. There are teams. There are team houses. There are coaches nowadays. You can get a visa to come over here. I mean, it's a thing. So I'm sort of proud of esports. I've followed it for a really long time, and I'm glad that it's to this point now where we can sort of have these types of discussions and be smart about where it's at today. And one other thing that I was really sort of proud with the esports community was at DreamHack this last weekend with this Hearthstone tournament. So I know we usually talk about MOBAs here, but there was this sort of weird controversy that happened at DreamHack with the Hearthstone tournament. You're nodding your head, so you must have been following this.
I saw it, yeah.
So basically what happened was in the finals of the DreamHack Hearthstone tournament, one of the players, RDU, was messaged what the other player he was playing against had in his hand.
Whoa!
And it was in the very last sort of round, and it was eventually deemed that him getting that information had no sort of strategical bearing on the win. He would have won no matter what. There was only sort of one play he could have done, and so knowing what the other guy had didn't matter. But everyone was just like, "Oh my God, this guy got told, what was in his hand." They had the exact same reaction that you just did. Get out the pitchforks. Like, this guy's cheating the whole time, and sort of, and that was sort of what happened on day one. And then the next day, the guy who he was playing against, Amaz, sort of came out. He sent out this video saying he didn't cheat. Like, you guys need to calm down. Like,
that's good for him.
And it was really good for him. And that's exactly what I'm getting to, is that was sort of a nice professionalism that I saw in Amaz, but I didn't exactly see in the community who got out these pitchforks all of a sudden. So what do you think about that whole controversy?
I saw that video too, because I actually, before I go to bed, I turn on some streams and stuff, and every once in a while I watch a Hearthstone stream, and it was interesting, and it was, he's a really nice guy in general, and he's a big streamer.
Right.
And I think that kind of shows you the power of having a big viewership, having, 10,000 viewers. Those people, obviously, when you lose, they're going to find a reason why you lost, and they're just going to attack. And so as soon as they heard that, he did get information about his cards, it was a big deal, but it was good for him to come out and say, calm down. I lost. I didn't get cheated. I lost, and that's a very mature thing to do, and it's a good thing to see from the video game industry, because you see a lot of I think a lot of people view us as like kids, and we're immature and stuff, but that's like a very mature thing to do, is to accept defeat and acknowledge that something weird probably happened, but
he still outplayed me.
Yeah, he outplayed me. I lost. And that's what happened, and I'll do my best to win next time. So I think it was a good step forward for like everyone in the community.
I think so too. But Blizzard, add a do not disturb or something for these games, or DreamHack needs
a tournament mode
a tournament. Exactly.
That
is spectator mode.
That's actually a really interesting point. I was going to say that about Smite earlier. Is that Blizzard obviously didn't do much to prevent things like that from happening.
Yeah.
And going forward, I think the companies, the developers that are more involved in the competitive scene will see their games be more successful, because I know Hi-Rez is a company that they basically did the whole launch tournament themselves, and they're very involved in the community, and people post on forums all the time and talk about what needs to be done for casual play, for tournament play, for everything, and they listen and they respond.
Right.
And I think that's something that needs to happen going forward. You can't just sit in your little developer bubble and say, no, this is what needs to happen. No, this is what needs to happen. Because there's thousands of people playing your game that have pretty good opinions, because they play for a lot of hours every day. So I think that's something that definitely needs to be looked at, and I think as a community, as video game players, people should gravitate towards games that the developers respect their opinion, because that's what ultimately should be done, and that's going to help their gameplay experience anyway.
That'll be the natural order of things too. Like, a community that knows the developers are listening and involving them is the community that will foster. Right. That's going to be that's just where people are going to go, because if they're playing a game and nobody's giving them feedback or responding to their feedback, they're just going to bounce.
Yeah. And that leads us right into our final topic of the day, actually, which is we're going to talk about customizing your characters in MOBAs. And I feel like one of the best companies who really does listen to their players right now is Valve with Dota 2, and the whole thing with the compendium. Again, it's reaching $10 million.
So close.
Yeah, it's so close
dumb.
right now. And Valve really gives back to both the players and to the community, and to the people who create the, customizable outfits and stuff that you can wear in Dota 2.
Do you guys remember when they launched, they were going to launch the Xbox 360, and they were like, yo, you're going to be able to sell your digital clothing to, people on Xbox Live?
I do not remember this at all.
I don't remember this at all either.
Yeah, there was a small, when they first launched, there was during one of the press conferences, they were like, yeah, you could, make stuff, and I forget, it was some creator, and you could sell digital shirts for your avatars, and they did that a long time ago, and then they just kind of
quietly swept it under the rug.
Because it was just probably one initiative of thousands that didn't get resources. Valve did it, and they're doing it so well.
Well.
But people you and I talked about one person who's made $100,000 just selling.
Good Lord.
Wouldn't surprise me if someone like Anuxi, who makes...
I think it's who it was.
So Anuxi is a female sort of designer who created some of the most beautiful cosmetics for Dota 2 characters. They're really cool, really detailed. Her work is amazing. And she gets some of the profits for every single thing that she sells in the Dota 2 store. So she has actually been so successful that I believe it's her full-time job now to create items just for Dota 2 because she's so good at it. And she makes awesome stuff. And so now a lot of people are creating awesome Dota 2 items. And I think it's really neat. I like that the community is, you know, the one creating these items for your characters, and you can sort of, and Valve sort of gives back to the people who are adding, you know, value to their game. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm really fascinated about. I'm currently working on a feature about this. You know, talking to creators of this and like, how do you make a living on this? What is it like to like? What is the process for getting your thing in the game and approved? And what's it like once it's sold? And how do you react to this? But I mean, this is the smartest thing about Dota for me is I love those cosmetic items. I live for it. Every time I get a drop, it's like, okay, am I going to wear this? No. Well, I'll offer it to my compendium and work towards something else. Like, I'm going to play another match. Maybe I'll get a good drop.
Or you can trade it too for you know, something that you do really like. So that's
like
cool too.
At the end of a match, I saw it the other night. We were playing with our friend Arthur, who got these Broodmother legs, and I was like, "You're giving me those because like I'm going to use those and you're not. So let's just trade this right now." And I love that. Like I've spent a lot of money on Dota. Mostly in cosmetic items, specifically so I could have, like, I play Drow Ranger a lot, so I want my Drow to look cool. I want her to have that, like, sweet X-Men Storm haircut. I want her to have those ice greaves. Like, I like all of that so much.
I think Valve, we're actually watching they put out that, the new TF2 event.
Team Fortress 2 thing.
And I think they do it for every game, and I'm wondering if we'll do it for, like, Team Fortress 2, where now I think it's completely community based for Team Fortress 2.
Oh, wow. Cool.
I think, like, don't quote me on that. But
Valve has like stepped away from it.
Yeah, I'm assuming they're still doing like features and stuff like that. But like,
the vast majority of it is community.
Yeah, because it makes sense because like that, they already have engaged people who are going to play like that's one of the top 10 games all the time. As is Dota, as is Counter-Strike is like huge, and that's even has community stuff coming towards it now. It's like they basically that is their model now.
Yeah,
is to like, we're going to build the base, and then we're going to give you the rest of the game.
My big thing with Dota's items, too, is that you can buy them, you buy sets, so you find individual pieces, and you can kind of mix and match, which is, like, my Lich isn't my favorite Barbie doll in my adult life, so I'm like, he's got the hood, but he's also got that, like, other belt from a different set, and I love mixing it. At the same time, I really love what League is doing with its skins, where a lot of them are, here's this, like, alternate color set, or here's this, like, wacky costume that's funny.
That's how Smite skins are too.
Yeah. I saw they added a World Cup skin for one of the characters.
Right.
Yeah.
And the unique thing is they not only is the skin different, but the abilities have different animations a little bit.
Oh, that's cool.
Like the ult on X-Blanc, who is X-Baller is what they call him, it basically creates a shroud of darkness over everyone. And in the football one, they have Vuvuzela playing. Like,
oh my God!
Yeah,
that's awesome.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard.
Exactly. And it also changes the voice pack too.
Wow.
So there's a lot of depth within it's not just the skin. It's also little subtle things that are pretty cool. But I do like the idea that people in the community can create skins like you guys were talking about.
Yeah.
And I think from a business standpoint, that makes so much sense. Why do the work when you can have people do the work for you?
Absolutely.
And ultimately, they're paying them, even though she's making a lot of money creating those costumes, she's making a lot less than they would have had to pay to have people in-house develop all the things that she's making.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
so it's smart.
Not only does the community make the item, but the community votes on the items that they want in the store too.
Yeah.
So only things that people are actually going to buy make it into the store. So it's just another like layer to the smart cake that Valve is sort of baked into
smart cake
into the Dota 2.
League. I don't know. There's been a couple skins recently where it's been just like color palette swaps. There's been small like particle differences, but they have been getting. Like, I think they took the feedback. We're like, hey, that's not okay. Like, we're not gonna.
I don't want that, but purple.
I mean, one of the characters, Zach, just has a purple skin, and there was some new animation involved with it, and I think they've got better at. Oh, we should just price those accordingly. If we're going to do this, it can't be. They built in different tiers of price for new extra things that they had. Like, they basically were like, hey. These are a bunch of new animations, so we had to charge X amount more.
Yeah, I don't know if League or Smite does this, but something I find really interesting in the Valve stories, like in addition to having sales, like there are sets on sale all the time, where something that was $7 is now $1. Like, yeah, I'm gonna buy that. I might use it. It's $1, whatever. But Valve's key system is fascinating to me. It worked for Team Fortress 2. It was what allowed Team Fortress 2 to go free, right? Where you get these random drops of treasures and you buy a key for $1 or $2 and you get a random item inside. That is like such a tempting system to take advantage of, because every time you go into a loading screen or whatever, it's like it is showing you the treasures that are available, and you can like peek inside and see like, oh man, there's a really amazing courier in there that I would like. Yeah. So you run the risk of like, okay, I could just go into the marketplace and find that and buy it from another user, or I could spend $2 on a key and maybe I'd get it. But if I don't get it, well, maybe I'll get like that cool Wind Ranger cape or whatever.
It also is I think they have a really good feedback system of the countdown clock and like the countdown thing where it like ticks down and then it unlocks and makes the noise.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing with Hearthstone. Is like they wanted to make it really satisfying to open a pack of cards, and it is. And now when you open a legendary treasure in Dota, it's like it's got that little card that pops up, and it's got the smith saying like, "Let me get that for you, just a second." Ding, ding, ding. Here it comes. You're like, just give me it.
Oh man, I'm a huge fan of customizing my characters. Sounds like you guys are too.
Yeah.
So, cool.
Yeah, let us know what your favorite sets are for any character, because I occasionally miss skins, even in League, where like I'll go through them like I did not know that existed.
Right.
So totally.
Definitely let us know what
you can send that feedback to arenapodcast@ign.com.
Last thing I thought was really cool was in Smite they have ward skins now.
Oh right.
Yes.
And one of them they just put in the game was awesome. It's like a used car. You know the wind guys that just kind of
wacky waving inflatable arm flailing.
Just guys that are just like flailing their arms.
That's really awesome.
Now, and I was just like, it's so like simple, but it's just so awesome. Like it's just a little ward that's just flying around.
Yeah, and that just brings the game to life with a bit of personality, because you're wandering around and suddenly that fool's waving around. You're like, all right, I'm into you. This is the best game.
Well, cool. Well, Cody, thank you so much for being here. We really enjoyed having you on the podcast this week. Awesome. Again, our email is arenapodcast@ign.com if you guys want to send in your feedback, questions for next week. I believe we're going to be talking more Infinite Crisis next week. So
I hope so.
Hopefully we'll be talking about Infinite Crisis next week. So if you have any questions on that one, make sure to send them to us. And I think that'll do it.
Yep,
for more on MOBAs, competitive gaming, all that good stuff, you can subscribe to IGN Arena at youtube.com/IGN Arena, and that'll do it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Leah.
Bye. Bye.